Picture this. You walk into a Japanese office at 2 in the afternoon, and you see something that would get you fired instantly in most Western countries. An employee sitting at his desk, head tilted back, mouth slightly open, fast asleep. But before you pack your bags to Japan thinking you've found the ultimate work paradise, let me tell you the real story behind why Japanese people sleep at work. And trust me, it's far more complex and heartbreaking than you could ever imagine. But here's the shocking part. Nobody wakes him up. Nobody seems bothered. My colleague Tanaka-san, a 45-year-old father of 2, fell asleep during a meeting. Not just dozed off, but genuinely fell into a deep sleep, snoring softly while our manager continued presenting quarterly reports. It's because they're literally working themselves to death. But the actual number is often much higher because of unpaid overtime and social obligations. Over the months I learned his story and it broke my heart. He would arrive at the office at 7 in the morning and rarely left before 10 at night. It allows companies to extract inhuman amounts of labor from their employees, while maintaining a veneer of understanding and compassion. Inamuri follows very specific social rules that reveal the hierarchical nature of Japanese society. Not everyone can sleep at work. You need to remain somewhat upright, showing that you're still technically present and could be awakened if needed. You can't get too comfortable. No lying down, no removing shoes, no blanket. Its sleep is theater, a carefully choreographed display of exhaustion that communicates your dedication while maintaining professional decorum. In a country where taking vacation days is seen as selfish and leaving the office before your boss is considered disrespectful, sleeping at work becomes one of the few socially acceptable ways to take care of your basic human needs. It's not rest, it's a survival. During my 5th year in Japan, Tanaka-san had a mild heart attack at age. He was hospitalized for a week, and when he returned to work, the first thing he did was apologize to the team for the inconvenience his illness had caused. Many are beginning to question these cultural norms, especially younger generations who have seen their parents sacrifice everything for companies that ultimately showed no loyalty in return. The concept of work-life balance is slowly entering Japanese vocabulary, though it still faces significant resistance. Despite the crushing work demands, many of my Japanese colleagues maintain their dignity, their kindness, and their commitment to excellence. The fact that people can survive inhumane working conditions doesn't mean they should have to. The normalization of sleeping at work is a charming cultural quirk. It is a symptom of a system that treats human beings as expendable resources rather than as complete people with needs, dreams, and limits. They found small moments of joy in a perfectly prepared meal, in cherry blossoms viewed from the office window, in brief conversations with co-workers who had become like family. He was unangry about the working conditions that had literally damaged his heart. He felt guilty for burdening others with his absence. The question is whether normal should be acceptable when normal is slowly killing people. And that's a question every society, not just Japan, needs to ask itself. If you're young, if you're new to the company, if you're in a junior position, sleeping at work would be career suicide. On one hand, I had come to understand it as a small act of rebellion, a way for exhausted workers to reclaim tiny moments of rest in a system designed to extract every ounce of their energy. I asked him if he ever regretted the sacrifices he had made for his career. You're looking at human beings who are so exhausted from trying to meet impossible demands that their bodies are literally shutting down. You're seeing the visible symptom of a society that has forgotten that people are more than just workers, that rest is a human right, not a privilege to be earned through suffering. He thought for a long moment, then said something that broke my heart. I don't know any other way to live. This is what being responsible looks like in Japan. He was unproud or bitter, just resigned to a system that had shaped his entire understanding of what it means to be a good person. On the other hand, I couldn't shake the sadness of knowing that for many of my colleagues, those brief moments of sleep at their desks were the closest they would come to taking care of themselves. It's a society that has convinced its people that working yourself into exhaustion is noble, that sacrificing your health and relationships for your company is honorable, and that rest is something you earn through suffering rather than something you deserve as a human being. The employees who engaged in inamori most frequently were also the ones showing signs of depression, anxiety, and physical health problems. They had higher rates of divorce, estranged relationships with their children, and what psychologists call learned helplessness, the belief that their situation was unchangeable. Only senior employees, those who have already proven their dedication through years of sacrifice, are allowed this privilege. Oh, you're sleeping at work. That just shows how dedicated you are. But fighting desperately to remain alert because they knew that sleeping would be interpreted as disrespect or laziness rather than dedication. The ability to sleep at work is earned through years of proving that you've sacrificed your personal life, your health, and your family relationships for the company. The emphasis on collaboration, respect for hierarchy, and long-term thinking has created some of the world's most successful companies. The problem isn't Japanese culture itself, but the extreme to which certain values have been taken. Japanese workplace culture requires employees to maintain harmony, avoid conflict, and suppress personal feelings for the greater good of the group. This emotional labor is exhausting, and sometimes the mind just shuts down as a form of self. It's a way of normalizing and even celebrating what is essentially workplace abuse. On weekends, he would come in voluntarily to catch up on work. His commute was 2 hours each way, which meant he was leaving his house at 5 in the morning and getting home after midnight. One by one, I watched my Japanese colleagues start falling asleep during meetings, at their desks, even while standing during presentations. It wasn't just physical exhaustion, it was emotional and mental breakdown disguised as dedication. After the official workday ends, there's still nomowashi, the informal meetings and relationship building that happens over drinks. Then there are the company parties, the weekend golf games with clients, and the constant pressure to be available via email and phone. Japan has a word for this too, karoshi, which means death from overwork. And inamuri is often a symptom of this much larger, more troubling problem. I looked around, expecting someone to nudge him awake, but everyone just continued as if nothing was happening. In fact, some colleagues even lower their voices as they pass by his desk out of respect. She said Tanaka-san must be working very hard. It shows his dedication. Most nights he would help his wife with household chores, spend a few precious minutes with his children if they were still awake, and then collapse into bed only to repeat the cycle the next day. The 20-minute power naps he took at his desk were luxurious afternoons. They were his body's desperate attempt to survive on chronic sleep deprivation. I thought she was joking, but she was completely serious. In Japan, sleeping at work is seen as laziness or disrespect. It is actually viewed as evidence that you're working so hard you're exhausted. It's a badge of honor, a visible demonstration of your commitment to the company. But this isn't just taking a nap because you're tired. Inamori is a cultural phenomenon that reflects something much deeper about Japanese society, their relationship with dedication, sacrifice, and the blurred lines between personal well-being and professional commitment. Welcome to the fascinating world of inamuri, a uniquely Japanese practice that has baffled foreigners for decades. My name is Sarah. I'm an American who spent 7 years working in Tokyo for a major Japanese corporation. But here's where the story gets darker. The reason Japanese employees are sleeping at work is because they're lazy or because Japanese culture encourages napping. During my time in Japan, I learned that the average Japanese employee works around 60 to 80 hours per week. Tanaka-san, the colleague I mentioned earlier, became my window into understanding this world. When did he sleep? Between midnight and 4 in the morning if he was lucky. The cultural acceptance of inamuri serves a disturbing purpose in Japanese society. But there's another layer to this phenomenon that most people don't understand. I remember watching younger employees struggle to stay awake during long meetings, their eyelids heavy, their heads nodding. There's also a performative aspect to inamuri that outsiders rarely recognize. The way you sleep matters. During my 3rd year in Japan, I started to understand another crucial aspect of inamuri. I witnessed this firsthand during a particularly stressful project where we were working 18-hour days for 3 weeks straight. The saddest part about inamuri is what it represents about work-life balance in Japan. I started documenting the sleep patterns of my colleagues, and what I discovered was horrifying. But here's what really opened my eyes to the tragedy of this system. The normalization of inamuri is part of a larger cultural narrative that equates human worth with productivity and sacrifice. This isn't to say that Japanese people are victims without agency. There are also positive aspects of Japanese work culture that shouldn't be ignored. What struck me most during my time in Japan was the resilience of the human spirit. But resilience shouldn't be confused with acceptance of abuse. As I prepared to leave Japan after 7 years, I had mixed feelings about inamuri. The last conversation I had with Tanaka-san has stayed with me for years. So when you see those viral videos of Japanese people sleeping at work, remember that you're not looking at a quirky cultural practice or evidence of a relaxed work environment. The question isn't whether sleeping at work is normal in Japan.